Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. FPL Vincenzo here, and first off, a little apology. It's been a while since I last podded. Generally just a bit busy with life, but also just so indecisive. And as much as the pods I tend to create and provide are not really so much around my team, I always like to have my team in the back of my mind when I'm sort of giving advice and thoughts to you as the listeners. So I wanted to have like full clarity in my head first in terms of what I'm thinking for my team. And I think that helps me then give sort of better analysis and better opinion around sort of other people's situations. So I wouldn't naturally call myself a particularly indecisive FPL manager, but I think the period here between game week 31 and 32, there's been so many twists and turns, changes in direction, that I haven't really settled on a plan. And even talking to you now, and I'm recording this on the Friday morning, and the deadline for game week 32 is Friday night, I'm still not completely committed to a plan. And this is quite unusual, I think, for me going into one of these pods. So hopefully this doesn't come across too differently. I hope that I have the same level of opinion and input that you're used to hearing from this channel. But I say just bear that in mind, that there's lots of options here, and it's so different for everybody. And even two people in similar positions still may choose to go different routes. There's other content creators that say, like, play it your way, and that's always true. But I certainly think right now, what one person is doing and what one person is feeding as advice may not ring true for everybody. So I'll share it from my perspective and we'll take it from there. The feature of this pod is really what chip to play in game week 33. Because I think the one guarantee here for me is that you need to be playing a chip in game week 33. But what chip, I think, is very open to interpretation. And what I've put at the moment, for me, again, I've got 3 chips left. I played my triple captain on Gabriel already. So I have a wild card, a bench boost, and a free hit. And I've put on the screen now the 3 routes I've got. So I've got wildcard 32 this week, which would lead into obviously the bench boost 33 with realistically 14 or 15 doublers. And then because I'd have all those doublers, I then need to free hit 34 to make sure I've got an 11 out for that. So that route path is quite evident. I think I've got the path to free hit game week 33, which is obviously the bigger double. I think if I do that, I'm committing to wildcard in game week 35 with a bench boost in game week 36. And then if I wildcard in game week 33 in the double, which has been my plan for about 5 or 6 weeks, I think dating back to about game week 27, this was my sort of primary plan, to wildcard in game week 33. To do that, I would have obviously loads of doublers. I'd again need to free hit 34 to get 11 out. And then I'd have some flexibility for bench boost. I could play it in 35 or 36. So on the screen at the moment is some fixtures projected on FPL team. And I think there's a quite high probability now we'll get this. So we know, obviously, in game week 33, there's 6 teams with a double. Bournemouth, Brighton, Burnley, Chelsea, Leeds and Man City. Those teams then blank in game week 34. And we expect the Man City Crystal Palace game that was taken out of FPL game week 31 because of Man City being in the League Cup final. The expectation is that game goes into game week 36. So we should have another single double there just for Man City and Palace. Obviously, if you've got a triple captain left, that's the ideal week to use that. Man City have got 2 home games seemingly against Brentford and Crystal Palace. But for me, no triple captain. So we'll start with that. I'm going to talk through all the 3 paths now individually to see if it helps to sort of work out the plan on where to go next. So first slide here is to wildcard 32 into the bench boost 33. And if I'm being honest, I don't really like this. Game week 32 fixtures, we have Arsenal at home to Bournemouth, we have Brentford at home to Everton, we have Liverpool at home to Fulham. I'm not saying those 3 home teams are incredible, particularly Liverpool at the moment, and Brentford, Everton could go either way. But I've got quite strong ownership from those 3 teams already. I have Raya and Gabriel, I have Thiago and Sepp Vandenberg, I have Van Dijk, Ekitike and Szoboszlai. Do I want to give up those 7 fixtures there at home to have players that have got a double game week next week, not with a good fixture here? So prime examples, as I've said all the way through, is this Chelsea Man City game. I don't really want to load up on these 2 teams. And I think if I wildcarded in 32, I would have 6. I'd have Gusto, Palmer and Pedro from Chelsea. I would have O'Reilly, Semenyo and Haaland from City. And I'd have to play all 6 of them, realistically, because Bournemouth are away to Arsenal this week. They have a double next week and they're cheap enablers. And because Leeds are away to Man United this week with a double, I think you have to have ownership from those 2 teams. They're naturally the bench options here, the Bournemouth players at Arsenal, the Leeds players at Man United. So that means you play all your Chelsea and Man City. Obviously, that game could be anything. And there's routes to points, different routes to points from different players within that. But do I really want 6 players from that? No. Does it make my team any better? Not really. You're picking 6 from there. You have your triple Brighton with a double next week and they play Burnley. So that makes sense. Bruno Fernandes, obviously, for the captaincy. And then I have to play one of my Leeds players. I think it's too much sacrifice in game week 32, just literally for the sole purpose of having more doublers on the bench boost in 33. And then you look ahead beyond that, you play the free hit 34. In 35, do I even want all these sort of Chelsea and Brighton players? Not really. Brighton have got a hard game in 35. I don't really want to carry 3 Chelsea from now till the end. I don't particularly want to carry all these Bournemouth from now till the end. Leeds not so bad, Man City not so bad, but I think you need 4 or 5 transfers in hand, really, if you're going through with this plan. Also, you need to make a decision on Bruno Fernandes in the double in game week 33. Are you selling him or are you just going to play him in a single? For me, I was never a big fan of this even before Arsenal lost to Southampton in the FA Cup. I know lots of people thought it was a no-brainer. I could have been sort of twisted round, or I had a change of mind towards it if I looked at it in more detail, but it was never my number one plan. Arsenal obviously going out's made it 10 times worse. So if you've activated now, you're obviously committed to it and you've got no option. My question then would be really, I would even still consider not having so many doublers on the bench boost 33 and setting up a bit better for the longer term or something. I'd say I'm really anti having 3 Chelsea players and double Bournemouth, triple Bournemouth, things like that to go with it. And I say Brighton aren't that helpful long term either. So for me, you need the transfers in hand to get these players out. I don't have those transfers in hand, so I think this strategy is a definite no for me. Then you go on to the Wildcard 33, which is the plan, or been my longer term plan for a while. And at the moment, I've put some sort of draft teams together. If I did Wildcard in 33, what my bench boost 35 would look like. So it would have triple Leeds, obviously with the double, and their runs until the end are quite nice, particularly in game week 35 for the bench boost when they're at home to Burnley. So Darlow, Struijk and Calvert-Lewin all go in. You still have your double Bournemouth with Hill and Tavernier, your triple Man City with O'Reilly, Semenyo, Haaland. Double Chelsea with Palmer and Pedro, so that's the 10 doublers. And then you leave Bruno Fernandes there. So you wild card into a team with 10 doublers and you leave Bruno Fernandes. And then the bench is basically setting up for what might be in the future. I say ideally, I think after game week 33 and 34, so that 35 to 38 period, I think Arsenal have got the best fixtures and Crystal Palace have got that double with Man City. So you have to have one eye on that. Then you've got Aston Villa, who have Tottenham in 35 and Burnley in 36. A bit more of a short-term punt, not a permanent hold. But again, probably players that there's upside in between 35 and 38. So for me, the bench is preparing for those things. So Raya and Gabriel go on the bench on the wild card. Lacroix goes on the bench in preparation for that Palace double with Man City. And Morgan Rogers stays there because, I say, Villa have Tottenham and Burnley. That makes a really nice bench boost. So Raya, Gabriel, 2 Arsenal players at home to Fulham. Triple Leeds with Darlow, Struijk and Calvert-Lewin at home to Burnley. O'Reilly, Semenyo and Haaland all have Everton away. That's fine. The Chelsea guys, Palmer and Pedro, have Forest at home. That's fine. Bruno against Liverpool. Rogers against Tottenham. The only issue being the bench boost effectively is all in one fixture. It's the Bournemouth versus Crystal Palace game. Tavernier and Hill carry across. They've got the home fixture and Lacroix's there away in the same game. Not ideal for a bench boost, I think, because you obviously can't maximise because you've got defenders on opposing sides and an attacker from one. But I think it's quite a nice position. The issue being, I think, with this, the more I look at it, is I will have 1 or 2 transfers going into 36, but I can't load up properly on Arsenal and Palace. I've only got 1 Palace here. I can't get, not easy to get 2 more, and also get the 3rd Arsenal. So I'm compromising a little bit of that. So as an example, hypothetically here, Cole Palmer could become Ismail Assar in 36 when Palace have the double. And the funds of that would allow an easy upgrade somewhere else. Maybe Hill becomes Munoz, or I don't know. Maybe you can put Joel Pedro up to Watkins, or you find the way to get Gyökeres in. I don't know what it will be. But you're a bit short, I think, on Arsenal and Palace going into 36. But as a wild card to set up a bench boost, there is a gap of a game week. You've got to get through free hit 34 as well. But you do get 10 doublers out on the wild card in the big double, and you're still setting yourself up quite nicely for the bench boost 35 and beyond. And I quite like the team moving forward. The price points are nicely covered. You've got your cheap defender in Hill and strikes there, as well as another cheap defender if you want to play 3 at the back. You've got plenty of good options in midfield, and I think that the way the data's looked all season, I did a pod about this quite a long time ago, and it's still true now. Midfielders are a better value for money than strikers. So there's that. And I think that there's a validity here also, if you wanted to, that you can put like Brobby into this team in game week 35. That could be your transfer if you wanted to. He's got Wolves. And if you wanted to make sure you've got sort of good finance in each position, so you have got that cheap rate for Taka Brobby at like 5.5, you can bench boost him for Sunderland against Wolves. And he basically becomes your 3rd sub with the 2 cheap defenders for the rest of the season, and Darlow. You haven't got too much money on your bench there if you play it like that. So don't hate that move. And I think that's a valid play. But the longer the week's gone on, and particularly overnight, I am coming round to the idea to free hit 33. Reason being, I think at the moment, if you ask me to free hit game week 33 and you ask me to wildcard game week 33, I'd effectively have the same team. I think literally the only difference would be Bruno Fernandes. I think on the wild card, you would pick him, even though he's got a single, because he's so important moving forward and you want him for the rest of the season, a lot of value tied up in him, etc., etc. Whereas if you free hit, I think you would go all out to have 11 doublers. So that Bruno Fernandes spot becomes another doubler. So you assume you're going to get a little bit of extra upside by having that extra player with a double game week. So I think there's that to bear in mind. I've got an 11 out for game week 34, and it will be viewed a bit like game week 31. Obviously, it's only fairly recently game week 31, but there was an acceptance. I think we wasn't going to have the perfect team. We might be taking on some free hits, but we had 11 players out, and it was enough to sort of cover the game week. I'm in a similar position for game week 34 with my current team, that I'd have to bench Haaland, I'd have to bench Hill, etc., because they won't have a game. But I can get 11 out quite comfortably, and it's not the worst 11. And even on paper, if you had to play the free hit, I think in game week 34, it's not like there's an evident 1 or 2 teams to really target. You are going to be pushing Man United against Brentford and fixtures like that. Do I really want a Man United triple up? I don't hate the idea of it. It could work, but equally, I'm not sort of desperate to have it either. So I think you'd be forcing the free hit in 34 when it's not really necessary. And if I follow through with that plan, so free hit 33, get through 34, then I can wildcard, obviously, into game week 35. And improve on all those things I just said. I can have my triple Arsenal. So this draft on the screen right now has got Raya, Gabriel and Saliba all in it. I can have triple Crystal Palace. It's got Henderson, Lacroix and Ismail Assar in it. You've still got triple Man City, O'Reilly, Semenyo and Haaland. So the 3 important teams are 2 teams going for the title and the 3rd team that's also got a double. You've got full quota of players from, that's 9 players. Bruno Fernandes obviously stays in because probably the best player in the game right now. And you can load up a little bit on Villa and arguably take some more punts. So Ollie Watkins, this is an overreaction to him scoring 2 goals against Bologna in Europe last night, but you can take a punt on someone like him up front. For Tottenham at home, we know what we haven't got no evidence of De Zerbi as Tottenham manager yet, how they'll play. But we'll know naturally he's an attacking manager. Watkins had a good record against De Zerbi's Brighton in those days. And then in game week 36, Villa have got Burnley. So it's a 2-week punt. Ollie Watkins playing against a De Zerbi team with iffy defence, and Burnley I think is as valid as it gets at this point of the season. Not many people will do that. So it's putting me in a position to take more punts like that. And the bench can obviously then set up for the weeks ahead. Elliot Anderson in there because we know what sort of capabilities he has as an all-rounder for points. Van Hecker goes in there to suit the bench boost in 36. This team, I think, doesn't have to carry so many what I'll call inferior players. That last draft had double. If I wildcard in 33, I've got 3 Leeds players. I've got 2 Bournemouth players. And things like that. And there'll be other teams covered as well. I'm not particularly overly keen to own players from. You want players from the best teams, ideally. This draft here has got triple Arsenal, triple Man City, top 2 in the league. Villa competing for the top 4, loads to play for. They're 2 key attacking players. Elliot Anderson is a bit of a DEFCON monster, and loads of Palace when they've got a double. Fine, and probably the best of Palace, maybe aside from Minoz. So I don't feel like I'm carrying as much. I won't use the word deadwood, because deadwood implies that these players are like a Mark Gooey type player. Not like that. But naturally, over the course of an FPL season, I won't want to fill my squad up with players from what I'll call the average teams. I want players from the best players from the best teams, and as many of them as possible. This draft, I think, the Wildcard 35 draft puts me in a better position to do that than the Wildcard 33 draft. Then you look ahead 1 week, so no gap, 1 week into the bench boost. And as I say, you've got the 6 doublers from the Man City Palace game. Triple Arsenal away to West Ham, I think that's fine. Double Villa away to Burnley, I think that's fine. Bruno Fernandes is there away to Sunderland. And then you're looking at Van Hecker playing Wolves, Calvert-Lewin playing De Zerbi's Tottenham, and Elliot Anderson with a home game against his former club Newcastle. You probably expect to get the 4 points. So looking at the 2 bench boosts that I've had on these last 2 slides, one of them is Darlow against Burnley. Maybe a good chance of a clean sheet there. Is that better than Raya away to West Ham? Probably not. I think both of them have probably got strong candidates to get 6 points. So then you're looking at double Bournemouth playing at home to Palace and 1 Palace playing Bournemouth. Or you're looking at Van Hecker playing Wolves, Elliot Anderson playing Newcastle, both at home, Calvert-Lewin at Tottenham. Probably not a lot in it is the reality here. But I think this route gives me generally a better squad to attack the last 4 game weeks with. So as much as I've been championing Wildcard 33 for 6-7 game weeks, and I'm still not anti that plan, I still think it's valid and I think it still works. Just for the way the fixtures have unfolded now, and it's taken me kind of all of this period to reach this conclusion. Others may have got there quicker, obviously, but for me, it's been a lot of sort of back and forth mentally around what to do. I'm now heading more to this route, to free hit 33. But we've got another week, obviously, to confirm these plans because we're only in the game week 32 deadline. I've just made a little thoughts and headaches slide at the end around the main 2 strategies. So I've written off the wildcard 32, bench boost 33 for me. But just sort of the main question I've been asking myself in the last day now is, what ultimately am I playing for? I'm on the cusp of like top 50k at the moment. Obviously, I finished top 3k last year. I think that's probably pushing it to expect to repeat last year's finish. I'm not saying it's impossible, but getting into the top 5k from here is hard. But I do think my goal from here is to go for the top 10k. I'm kind of a bit of an all or nothing manager. I don't think there's much point playing to protect the top 100k or to just guarantee as much as possible top 50. I think I'm the sort of manager that wants now to try and get into the top 10k. And I think doing that would give me the success I want in my mini leagues and the satisfaction in myself that it's been a really good FPL season. I think top 100k is fine, top 50k is fine, but I set myself higher goals than that, and I'm looking for top 10k. So when I've sort of been questioning myself on that, what ultimately am I playing for? And what that might be different for each individual listener here, what they're playing for. They may be trying to win a mini league. They might be trying to protect top 100k because they've never done it before. All these sorts of things. You may think differently. But for me, if I'm ultimately playing with the main objective now to finish in the top 10k, what route is better? So just to run through a few things again. If I'm going to wildcard 33, free hit 34, bench boost 35, that route gives me a stronger game week 34 team. Obviously, I've got the free hit active. I'd probably expect to gain sort of 10, 15 points on my base team that week. I'm taking a risk, though, that there's a game week between my wildcard and my bench boost, more time for things to go wrong. And I'm not going to be able to maximise Arsenal, who are top of the league competing for the title and have good fixtures for the run-in, and Palace, who have a double game week. and in general aren't the worst team either to own players from. So is the stronger Game Week 34 team worth the compromise of taking the risk of the bigger gap to the bench boost and not maximising two quite important teams to the end? If I go the other way, free hit 33, wildcard 35, bench boost 36, the main risk I feel like there's two risks I take. One is I have to wait until my wildcard to actually physically own certain players. And I don't think it's going to be a secret now that most of the players I want for the run-in are probably also players that other people want for the run-in. And we've seen so many examples this year of certain players getting so many price rises in a short space of time. Say Phil Foden being probably the most famous for it. Hekateke's had it. Things like that. We've seen 2 or 3 price rises a week, 4 or 5 price rises over a fortnight. I don't own Nico O'Reilly right now. And using this method, I won't physically own him until game week 35. How much will his price go up between now and game week 35? Again, there may be different opinions on this, but I wouldn't be surprised. It could be $1 million. I think that's real top end. I certainly think 0.6, 0.7 is reasonable to expect. I think I've got away with it if it goes up about 0.3 or something like that. Semenyo the same. I think pretty much everyone right now is, I think, in their heads thinking the best Man City triple up is O'Reilly, Semenyo and Haaland. I've only got Haaland from those 3. So that's 2 Man City players that could go up certainly around $500,000, maybe even more each. And there'll be other players that I don't own right now who will be popular buys for whatever reason until then. So if I wildcard in 33 and bring all those players in, O'Reilly, Semenyo as 2 and others, that same group of players wildcarding in game week 35 are certainly, I think, going to cost at least $1 million more. I know we're told at the moment that finance in FPL isn't as big as it previously been. Maybe there isn't as many premiums to own. But I don't just want to write off £1 million, or in FPL terms, £1 million in like a week or 2. So I've got to be aware here that can I actually afford the team I want in wildcard game week 35? I just put a draft on the last slide. I think it had like 0.1 in the bank. I'm pretty aware now I might not be able to afford that draft. And someone like Elliot Anderson might have to be downgraded to someone maybe sort of Kobe Mainu type price. I think it's like 4.6 at the moment or something. Hopefully, at worst case, it might go down to a James Garner at like 5.1. But I'm aware that if the likes of O'Reilly and Semenyo go up combined about $1 million, then my game week 35 wildcard might not work. And I'm fixed on a plan now. There's no flexibility around this bench boost. I'm committed to wildcard 35, bench boost 36. And how many compromises you're going to have to make to fund the team I want. So they're the 2 things to be aware of from a negative standpoint. Obviously, from the positive, though, there's just so much more opportunity to punt because you've got full information going into game week 35 around that Man City Palace game. You've got more update around injuries. You've got more updated around what the title situation is, if any, what the relegation situation is, which teams are on the beach. Are Aston Villa still in Europe? Are Palace still in Europe? Are Forest still in Europe? All these sorts of things. That wait until game week 35. It's not really getting too much new information at that point. You've got everything for the season. And because you're only playing the wild card effectively for 4 weeks, it's punt city, right? There's so much opportunity. If you're 50k and you really want 10k, you can punt so many more players if you want. You can go triple Villa if you want, and things like that. So I think the upside of waiting to game week 35 to wildcard is stronger. So I really don't think there's a lot of opportunity to free hit 34. I imagine you can get more points than your what we'll call base team, the one I've got at the moment. But I think on free hits, you're looking for quite big gains on your base team. I don't really feel like I'm going to get a big gain on my base team if I free hit 34, maybe 10, 15 points, maybe 20 if I'm lucky, but not 30s and 40s, I think, which you kind of hope for, you dream for on a free hit. So, yeah, recapping that, what I'm playing for is a top 10k to give myself as much chance as possible to make up the points I need to jump from like 60k to 10k. I feel like I'm going to have to take some punts and have a little bit of a swing at a few things here. Even if that means compromising my top 100k, I think I'm prepared to do it to try and reach 10k. I'd rather finish 110k and give 10k a go than finish like 40k having not give 10k a go. So that's where my head is. I just need to sort of definitely confirm with myself that I can find a team that I'm happy with on Wildcard 35 if the likes of O'Reilly and Semenyo and others get reasonable regular price increases between now and then. So yeah, that's it for this. Sorry it's been so long again. It's been this clarity of thought around how to handle this wildcard versus free hit 33 debate that's sort of been bugging me. I think for this week, I'm just going to roll. I've got quite a nice 11 out. At least on paper, it's quite a nice 11. So we'll take what we get this week. I think if you're in a position this week where you've got 3 or 4 free transfers, I wouldn't hesitate to use 1 or 2 to improve things. If you haven't got your full quota of Arsenal, I think you can get them now at home to Bournemouth. I don't hate that plan. And I think we reassess again next week. We've got another, whether it's going to be 7 days or so to decide what we want to do around the wild card versus the free hit. But yeah, having sort of spent quite a lot of time thinking about this, particularly in the last couple of days, I think I'm now heading more towards the free hit route. So hopefully I'll be back again before the Gameweek 33 deadline with some updated thoughts and decisions around my team that maybe help you with your team. Appreciate any likes and subscribes, please, if you can do that for me. And I'll speak to you all again soon. Thanks very much.